Explain whys comes from these topics, very important explain whys. Okay, that's why we will revise these topics. So glossopharyngeal, it is the ninth cranial nerve. It is mixed nerve, contains both the sensory and motor fibers. And these are the functional components of the glossopharyngeal nerve. First is spatial visceral efferent fibers. They arise from the nucleus ambiguous and supply the stylopharyngeus muscle, which is muscle of the third pharyngeal arch. Next is general visceral efferent. These fibers arise from inferior salivatory nucleus, and these are preganglionic parasympathetic fibers that relay in the otic ganglion and supply the parotid gland. Okay. Next is general visceral afferent fibers. They carry general sensation from the pharynx, palate, posterior one third of the tongue, tonsil, carotid body, carotid sinus. Okay, and these sensations are carried to the nucleus tractus solitarius. Silence, everyone. Next is spatial visceral afferent fibers. They carry taste sensation from the posterior one third of the tongue, including the circumpallate papilla, and they carry sensation to the nucleus tractus solitarius. Next is general somatic afferent fibers. They carry general sensations from the middle ear and proprioceptive sensation from the stylopharyngeus to the nucleus of the spinal tract of trigeminal nerve. Okay, so these are the functional component of the glossopharyngeal nerve. These are the functional component. These are distributions, and here are the some clinical integration. So functional component, spatial visceral efferent. From this chart, it is clearly visible. So here are the functional components. These are the nuclei involved, and these are the functions done by this functional component. So spatial visceral efferent fibers, nuclei, this is the nucleus ambiguous, supply stylopharyngeus muscle. Efferent means it will supply muscle, and general visceral efferent, here nuclei is inferior salivatory nucleus and it is supplying the glands. Okay, parasympathetic fibers for the parotid gland. Next is general visceral afferent fibers. Okay, it is nucleus tractus solitarius, and it carries general sensation from the pharynx, palate, posterior one third of the tongue, tonsil, carotid body, and carotid sinus. From here, sensations are carried to nucleus tractus solitarius. Next is spatial visceral afferent. It will carry spatial sense. So taste sensation is carried from the posterior one third of the tongue, including the circumvallate papilla. Next is general somatic afferent component. Here also nucleus is the nucleus of spinal tract of trigeminal nerve. And here general sensation from the middle ear and proprioceptive sensation from the stylopharyngeus is carried to this nucleus via these fibers. Okay. Next is ganglia of the glossopharyngeal nerve. So glossopharyngeal nerve has two sensory ganglia, smaller superior and larger inferior ganglia, and they contain cell bodies for the sensory fibers. Okay. Next, what is the origin of the nerve? Ninth cranial nerve or glossopharyngeal nerve arises by 3-4 rootlets which are attached to the posterolateral sulcus of the medulla. Here is the origin of glossopharyngeal nerve. Above the vagus and accessory nerve. Okay, 9th, 10th, 11th arising from the posterolateral sulcus of the medulla. So these rootlets are just above the rootlet of the vagus nerve. Next, we are going to the course. It has two courses, intracranial course and extracranial course. So intracranial course, the rootlets of glossopharyngeal nerve pass forward and laterally towards the jugular foramen, and here they unite to form single nerve trunk, and just after its formation leaves the cranial cavity through an intermediate compartment of the jugular foramen within a separate sheath of dura mater. Okay, and it has small superior ganglion that lies within the jugular foramen and large inferior ganglion that lies in the lower part of jugular foramen. At the inferior ganglion, the glossopharyngeal nerve bends sharply downward and leaves the skull through the jugular foramen. And this glossopharyngeal nerve rests on the groove of jugular tubercle of the occipital bone. Okay, so this is intracranial course after it coming out through the intermediate compartment of the jugular foramen. Next is extracranial course. After coming out through the jugular foramen, the nerve passes downward forward between the internal jugular vein and internal carotid artery, and then it passes between external and internal carotid arteries deep to the styloid apparatus, and this nerve winds forward around the lower border and superficial surface of the stylopharyngeus muscle, supplying this muscle, and finally enters the pharynx through the gap between the superior and middle constrictor of the pharynx and divides into its terminal branches. Okay, so this is extracranial course of the glossopharyngeal nerve. See here the two ganglion. Superior ganglion is smaller. This is inferior ganglion, which is large ganglion. And here are the branches you can see. This is auricular branch going towards the auricle. Here is the carotid branch supplying the carotid body, carotid sinus at the bifurcation of the common carotid. Here it is entering into the pharynx in between the superior and middle constrictor, and this is pharyngeal branch, and this is branch to stylopharyngeus. This one is supplying the tonsillar branch, and here is the tympanic branch forming tympanic plexus. It is relaying in the otic ganglion supplying the parotid gland. Okay, and the tympanic cavity, also tympanic cavity is supplied by this nerve. So branches and distribution. First is tympanic branch. It carries sensation from the mucous membrane of the tympanic cavity, tympanic membrane, mastoid antrum, mastoid air cells, and most of the auditory tube. And the preganglionic parasympathetic fibers of the tympanic branch, those fibers from the inferior salivatory nucleus, supply the parotid glands through the otic ganglion. Next is carotid branch. This one is carotid branch. It supplies to the carotid sinus and carotid body. Next is pharyngeal branch. Pharyngeal branches from the pharyngeal plexus and carry sensation from mucosa of the pharynx. Okay, so this is pharyngeal branch, which is also giving supply to stylopharyngeus. Muscular branch to stylopharyngeus muscle, which is a muscle of third pharyngeal arch. Glossopharyngeal nerve is nerve of third arch. Next is tonsillar branches, supply the palatine tonsil, soft palate and palatoglossal arches. Lingual branches will supply posterior 1/3 of the tongue and circumvallate papilla and carry both the taste sensation and general sensations. Next, there are auricular branch. This is auricular branch, supplies the pinna of the ear and external auditory meatus, and the cell bodies of these sensory neurons are located in the superior ganglion of the glossopharyngeal nerve. Okay, so these are the branches and their supplying area. This is the summarization of the branches and their functions. Tympanic branch, sensory supply to mucous membrane of tympanic cavity, tympanic membrane, mastoid antrum, mastoid air cells, most of the auditory tube, and preganglionic parasympathetic fibers to parotid gland. Carotid branch to carotid sinus and carotid body, and pharyngeal branch carries sensation from mucosa of the pharynx. Muscular branch is supplying the stylopharyngeus muscle, tonsillar branch to palatine tonsil, soft palate and palatoglossal arches. Lingual branch is carrying the general and taste sensation from the posterior 1/3 of the tongue and circumvallate papilla. Okay, an auricular branch will supply pinna of the ear, external auditory meatus. Next, we are going to clinical integration. Clinical integrations are very important for your explain why. Okay, remember this. And for understanding the clinical aspects, you have to know the branches of the nerve and their functions. So, clinical testing of glossopharyngeal nerve is done by testing the gag reflex. How will you elicit the gag reflex? Normally, tickling the posterior wall of the pharynx, soft palate, or tonsillar fossa, a reflex contraction of the pharyngeal muscle occurs, and this is called gag reflex, and it is absent in glossopharyngeal nerve paralysis. Okay. Next is testing the taste sensation on the posterior 1/3 of the tongue. It is carried by branch of glossopharyngeal nerve, lingual branch. So it is lost in glossopharyngeal nerve paralysis. Okay. See here the gag reflex have been explained. Stimulation of the posterior pharyngeal wall. Okay. It is sending sensations to the nucleus ambiguous, and it will lead to contraction of the pharyngeal muscle. It is sending sense also to the motor nucleus of the trigeminal nerve, and via the trigeminal nerve branches there will be jaw opening, and via the hypoglossal nucleus 12th cranial nerve there will be tongue thrust, and direct and consensual gag reflex is occurring. Okay, during stimulation of posterior pharyngeal wall. So, in lesions of glossopharyngeal nerve, it is usually occurs along with vagus nerve, and isolated paralysis of glossopharyngeal nerve is rare. It causes absence of gag reflex, loss of taste sensations and general sensation from posterior 1/3 of the tongue and circumvallate papilla, and loss of salivation from the parotid gland, difficulty in swallowing. Okay, because less salivary secretion, and also paralysis of the pharyngeal muscles. So these are the symptoms of lesion of glossopharyngeal nerve. So next is glossopharyngeal neuralgia. It is a short, sharp, severe paroxysmal attack of intractable pain in the area of sensory distribution of glossopharyngeal nerve in the throat, tongue and ear, and it is precipitated by the swallowing. Referred pain in pharyngitis. This is very important. This comes in your explain why. Why pain occurs in the ear during pharyngitis. There may be referred pain in the ear in pharyngitis as both are supplied by glossopharyngeal nerve. Okay, there are tympanic branches, pharyngeal branches. So all these are involved in referred pain in pharyngitis. Okay. So we have discussed 9th cranial nerve. Its clinical aspects are very important, and you remember the supplying area and different branches. Next we are going to 12th cranial nerve or hypoglossal nerve. It is purely motor nerve and supplies all the muscles of the tongue except the palatoglossus, which is supplied by cranial part of accessory nerve. Okay, 11th cranial nerve, palatoglossus. And these are the functional components. Two components are there. General somatic efferent component, they arise from the hypoglossal nucleus and supply all the intrinsic and extrinsic muscles of the tongue except the palatoglossus. And afferent fibers are general somatic afferent fibers. They carry proprioceptive fibers from the muscles of the tongue to the mesencephalic nucleus of the trigeminal nerve. Hypoglossal nucleus is about 2 cm long, located in the medulla in the floor of fourth ventricle deep to the hypoglossal triangle. Okay, you have seen the hypoglossal triangle in the floor of the fourth ventricle, rhomboid fossa. And origin of the hypoglossal nerve, it arises by 10 to 15 rootlets on the ventral aspect of the medulla from the anterolateral sulcus between the pyramid and olive. See, this is section of the medulla. Here is the hypoglossal nucleus. In the hypoglossal triangle, in the floor of the fourth ventricle, posterior to the medulla lies the fourth ventricle. So these nerves are coming out in between the pyramid and olive. Pyramid medially, olive laterally, from the anterolateral sulcus. So these are the hypoglossal nerve. C1 fibers join the hypoglossal nerve. These are the functional component: general somatic efferent, general somatic afferent. Hypoglossal nucleus for muscle of the tongue except palatoglossus, and general somatic afferent fibers are going to mesencephalic nucleus of trigeminal nerve for carrying proprioception from the muscles of the tongue. And from the hypoglossal nerve, all muscles of tongue except the palatoglossal are supplied, and C1 fibers are going to giving these branches: meningeal branch to thyrohyoid, geniohyoid, and descendants hypoglossi. And this clinical testing we'll discuss. So these are the functional component and these are the nuclei, these are functions. So spatial visceral efferent fibers, nuclei is hypoglossal nucleus, and it supplies all the intrinsic and extrinsic muscles of the tongue except the palatoglossus. And general somatic afferent fibers, nucleus is mesencephalic nucleus of trigeminal nerve, and it carries the proprioceptive fibers from the muscles of the tongue. Okay, so these are this chart you remember. Next we are going to course. Intracranial course and extracranial course are there. Intracranial course, the rootlets of hypoglossal nerve run laterally behind the vertebral artery and join to form two roots or bundles, and these two bundles pass through the hypoglossal canal, and these two roots unite in the hypoglossal canal before they leave the skull. Okay. Next, extracranial course. The nerve exits the skull through the hypoglossal or anterior condylar canal, and here it lies deep to internal jugular vein and internal carotid artery. And then the nerve descends between the internal jugular vein, internal carotid artery. At the lower border of posterior belly of digastric, it turns forward and crosses the internal and external carotid arteries laterally. It further runs forward and crosses the loop of lingual artery, hyoglossus and genioglossus muscles. And here the nerve passes deep to submandibular gland and mylohyoid muscle. And finally the nerve enters the tongue and divides into the terminal branch, supplying all the muscles of the tongue. Next we are going to branches and its distribution. Branches of hypoglossal nerve proper. Branches to supply all the intrinsic and extrinsic muscles of the tongue except the palatoglossus, which is supplied by cranial part of accessory nerve through the vagus. And branches of hypoglossal nerve containing C1 fibers. The hypoglossal nerve is joined by the fibers from C1 spinal nerve, and these are giving these branches: meningeal branches, descendants hypoglossi, nerve to thyrohyoid, nerve to geniohyoid. Okay, here are the nerve to geniohyoid, nerve to thyrohyoid. Okay, here is the meningeal branch, and this part is the descendants hypoglossi. So these are the C1 fibers joining with the hypoglossal nerve. And here the hypoglossal nerve is giving to supply to the intrinsic muscles of tongue, and these are the extrinsic muscles of the tongue. All intrinsic and extrinsic are supplied by the hypoglossal nerve except the palatoglossus. So meningeal branches, they enter the cranial cavity through the hypoglossal canal, supply the dura mater of posterior cranial fossa. Here this is entering through the hypoglossal canal. And descendants hypoglossi or the upper root of ansa cervicalis It arises from the hypoglossal nerve in front of the internal carotid artery and descends in the inferior root of the ansa cervicalis at the level of cricoid cartilage. And next is nerve to thyrohyoid, crosses the greater cornu of the hyoid bone and supplies the thyrohyoid muscle. Here, thyrohyoid. Nerve to geniohyoid, it arises above the hyoid bone and supplies the geniohyoid. This is nerve to geniohyoid. See the course of the hypoglossal nerve. Here it is formed by joining of the rootlets. Two roots are forming. Two roots are joined at the hypoglossal canal, then coming out through the hypoglossal canal, joining with the C1 fibers, okay, lying in relations with loop of lingual artery and supplying the intrinsic and extrinsic muscles of the tongue. And through the C1 root, it is giving meningeal branch, nerve to thyrohyoid, geniohyoid, okay, and forming the descendants hypoglossi. So, branches of the hypoglossal nerve proper, it is giving muscular branches to all the intrinsic, extrinsic muscles of the tongue except palatoglossus. And branches of hypoglossal nerve containing C1 fibers are these branches. Meningeal branches supply dura mater of posterior cranial fossa. Descendants hypoglossi forms the upper root of ansa cervicalis. Nerve to thyrohyoid supplying thyrohyoid. Nerve to geniohyoid supplying geniohyoid muscle. Next is clinical aspects of the hypoglossal nerve. This is very important. Come in your explain why. How will you test the hypoglossal nerve? Ask the patient to protrude the tongue. Normally, tongue is protruded forward in the midline. And if the hypoglossal nerve of one side is paralyzed, the tongue deviates to the side of paralysis due to action of contralateral genioglossus muscle. Okay. And if both the hypoglossal nerves are paralyzed, patient cannot protrude the tongue. So this will be the effect of paralysis of hypoglossal nerve on one side. See here, patient is protruding the tongue and tongue is deviated to this side. And in this side, injury of the hypoglossal nerve have occurred. So tongue is deviated to the injured side. Lower motor neuron type of paralysis of muscles of tongue, and during protrusion of tongue, deviation of tongue to the affected side due to action of the genioglossus of the opposite side. Okay. And this is important. Explain why. Why in paralysis of hypoglossal nerve on one side, tongue is deviated to the affected side due to action of opposite sided genioglossus muscle. Okay. Lesions of hypoglossal nerve are divided into intranuclear and supranuclear lesions. So in intranuclear lesions or injury to the hypoglossal nerve, that we have previously discussed, that is lower motor neuron type of paralysis. It results into lower motor neuron type of paralysis of the muscles of the tongue on the side of lesions, and on protrusion of the tongue it deviates to the affected side due to action of genioglossus of opposite side. And in bilateral hypoglossal nerve injury, patient cannot protrude the tongue and speech and swallowing are affected. Okay, in this, in intranuclear lesions or injury to the hypoglossal nerve. And in supranuclear lesion, that is upper motor neuron type of paralysis. Supranuclear lesion of the hypoglossal nerve occurs due to damage to the corticonuclear fiber connecting the motor area of the cerebrum to the hypoglossal nucleus and results into upper motor neuron type of paralysis, and on protrusion the tongue deviates to the opposite side. Okay. The supranuclear lesion affects the muscle of the opposite side of the tongue. Okay. Because crisscrossing occur during supplying between the corticonuclear fibers which were coming from the cerebral cortex to the hypoglossal nuclei. That's why opposite side is involved in lesion of the supranuclear paralysis or upper motor neuron type of paralysis. Okay, understood? Previous one is very important. Supra and infranuclear lesions or injury to the hypoglossal nerve. Okay. Okay, that's all. So explain why you prepare very carefully.